Once again, it is 19th of April. How are you doing this week, Kaye?
I'm doing great, man. We had amazing weather last week. It's getting cold again today, but we're almost at the tail end of the winter, so can't wait for the winter to finally end.
Yeah, it's just around the corner, isn't it? It's been pretty good actually over here in the UK. The last couple of weeks have been pretty bright, pretty warm, and we've got another week coming up, which is pretty warm as well. Get the odd rainy day, but that's normal for an island, pretty much. But yeah, how was your trading for this last week?
Well, trading is amazing, but I have to say I didn't expect this massive
No,
recovery, and
yeah.
it's like we went from fear all the way to greed. Crazy,
Yeah, we can
crazy
see the
turnaround.
differences. See the differences in that a little bit later on with the fear and greed index. It's quite the swing, and there's lots of excitement around the markets. I'm sure we'll get a few watchers here today, viewers here today. But before we get into that, obviously we're just a couple of guys looking at charts, giving our perspectives. So it's not financial advice, of course. Thank you for Wolf for letting us use the platform. We really, really appreciate it. And lastly, make sure you put your ticker requests in the comments. As you can see down there on the ticker thing going across the bottom of the screen there. We've had a few already. We can get them up on the screen. Nihalala came in nice and early. Coin, Grab, and GS. No worries. We can get them done and sorted for you. And we've got Money Managed here with PLAB, TSEM, and LRCX. LRCX is one of those which I keep looking at every time you bring it up, but I never actually trade it. But maybe one day, who knows?
Sean, can you
Yes,
pull up the first request? I don't see that on the chat on my side. Can you what was Neha's
this one
request?
here. So we've got Coin,
Coin.
Grab, and Goldman Sachs.
Hold on, let me just write that. And Goldman Sachs. Okay,
It
perfect.
came
Got
in
it.
before the stream opened, so maybe you didn't see that.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you
So
have money managers?
I have PLAB. Yeah. TSEM LRCX. Yes, I do. Okay.
And then we've got Justin again returning. Thank you very much for your continued support here, Justin. SPY, obviously, we'll cover that in one of our main charts anyway, so don't worry about that. There'll be about 5 minutes or something like that. And then Dan is coming to join us. Hello, Dan. GLXY. That's
I think GlaxoSmith.
a bit of news around that stock, isn't there,
Oh, it's
recently?
Galaxy Digital. Okay.
Yeah, so, okay, let's jump into this stream then while we're here. As you can see, normal layout for us. The picks of the week is ONDS and Netflix, so we'll get to them a bit later on. But obviously you can see there's the normal layouts. Let's move on to the next slide. So the market overview for last week, it was pretty green. So where shall I even start? So we've got Amazon, Google around that kind of 6% up mark, Tesla for a massive 15%. Microsoft just below that at 13%, and we've got some slightly smaller ones. We've got Meta, Apple, Nvidia, respectively up as well. So everything's nice and green. The only red kind of segment, should we say, is obviously health technology, energy minerals, which is actually behind K. You can't quite see that. But the real one is, I think, is the bottom left side there, which is kind of the semiconductor names, as you can see, obviously in videos I just said. Broadcom, Micron, and AMD, massive winners for the week. Anything else jumping off the screen there for you, Kate?
No, I think the only thing I can say is Netflix reported earnings and they were down 9% after hours. And I think for the week they ended -5%. So they were the only losers in the Mag 7 or the big ones or the big companies, right? Big market cap companies. Harish also asked for mega caps in general if possible. Yeah, we'll cover the big ones. If we don't have that many requests, we'll generally cover the big ones as well.
Yeah, awesome. Obviously, a very interesting week in the markets. Netflix, I'm looking forward to getting your take on Netflix a bit later on. I'm interested in maybe going along there, but not too sure how to execute it. But I want to get your feedback on Netflix. I'm sure a lot of viewers joining us today want the same sort of information. Okay, let's move on to the next slide then, which is a fear and greed index. I mean, look at that for a swing. This time last week, we were talking about 36. Is there a bounce? What's going on? That kind of stuff. But here we are sitting here this week at 68. Greed. Absolutely incredible. What a swing. All of a sudden, we're almost in extreme greed. We'll get into the chart in a second because there's a little bit of resistance coming up, at least in my eyes. But do you want to talk to the left side of the screen there, Kay?
Yeah, I mean, we were 0.88 on the put to call. We are back to 0.65. This is the general area where we stay around for a bullish market or even market that's kind of like chopping around with, like you stay around zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.7. VIX dropped drastically. It was 19 plus, and we are back to the mid 17s. SPY up again, 4+%, QQQ up 6%. Like those are massive numbers. And by the way, this is not the first week. The previous week also, SPY and QQQ were up like 2, 3, 4%. So just in a span of 2 weeks, it has covered a lot of distance. And you could see that on those mega caps, like for example Microsoft, Meta, those are really up high. And then key events, I think for us to watch next week is mostly the jobless claims number. That will be interesting to watch. I know there's consumer reports coming out, couple of Fed folks talking here and there. And then keeping an eye on what's going on with the whole geopolitical situation, if any curveball happens. Because this, if you think about it, this is very much like a cycle, right? 1 to 2 weeks good, everything is happening, everything is hunky-dory, then something, a curveball comes, the market pulls back, and then rinse and repeat. Way to make money.
Yeah, the Strait of Hormuz seems to be open and shut every other day at the moment, so it's interesting to see what's happening. Over the weekend, I think it's been shut by Iran. Obviously, there's a few attacks, so I think we might open a little bit red tonight. And obviously, they're holding talks, I think, in Pakistan, I think, tomorrow. Representatives of Donald Trump, so we'll see what happens with the market along that side. So if you're in this kind of environment and you're trading, just be aware of those headlines more anything than not. Obviously, it will affect your trading, so maybe downsize if you are looking to day trade in this market, and at least that's kind of my guidance anyway. That's what I do. Okay, let's move on to the next slide then, which is.
You want to respond to Jack James' question?
Oh yes, I didn't even see that there. Are you also streaming on YouTube? Yes, we are. We are trading weekly on the YouTube at trading weekly _. No, not underscore, that's mine. At trading weekly. Is that trading weekly, isn't it? Yeah.
I think so.
I don't have a thing that I can bring up, unfortunately. But yeah, you can find us on YouTube. We stream there every weekend. If you find it easier to comment on that, then obviously go ahead and subscribe to that. Maybe I'll get into that a bit later on.
All right,
do you want to talk to the earnings here on the screen here, Kaye, while I find
Yeah, I think the things folks would most likely want to focus on is Tesla, which is next week earnings. That is going to be an interesting one. I think Boeing is interesting. Boeing is slowly starting to recover. I think there's a lot of hiring happening at Boeing end. So a lot of eyes over there. I think Tesla and Intel's latest collaboration for the fab, terafab, I think that's going to put a lot of eyes on Intel as well. I think the other stock that I will be interested in watching is ServiceNow, because that is going to give you an insight into how the SaaS is going to perform this coming quarter, right? This earnings season. Which I feel like this might be the turnaround in the SaaS. It could be that, and because keep in mind, Anthropic did invest in ServiceNow. So a lot of interesting things happening. And most recently, I saw this video on Salesforce on how they are utilizing AI and the APIs, and so some really good stuff happening. So I think they might be able to play on that narrative this quarter. We'll see how it happens. We'll see how it goes. But I think this might be the turnaround happening for SaaS. Skeptical, but let's see.
It's interesting because we spoke about IGV just last week, and I was interested and I had a look at the chart and stuff. I didn't get into it in the end.
We have been talking IGV for a couple of weeks now, actually. And you showed extreme interest in buying IGV. So
yeah, I did, but it's not on my broker, so I couldn't even buy it.
Right.
Which is really frustrating. But yeah, hopefully there'll be another vehicle for me to buy it in the future. But it hasn't moved quite as much as the market, so there's a little bit of opportunity there.
Yeah, so just the Friday, the stock was at $74.97, and it moved up to $85.30. IGV.
You're talking about IGV, yeah, okay.
ETF.
So it has moved. Maybe we can add that to the list a bit later on, so we can have a look at that.
Okay.
Stick it on there. It'd be interesting to see what's happening. I'm sure lots of other people that are interested in the SaaS as well, that are not really into kind of separate names. Maybe they want to have a little bit of a basket to kind of have a look at. They might be interested in looking at that. The only one for me as well is American Express, just above your head. I'm interested to see if the consumer is still alive and running that way. But yeah, Tesla definitely the big one after Wednesday market close. I'll be there with my bucket of popcorn. That'd be interesting. The bucket of popcorn, obviously seeing what Elon's got to say as well. So yeah, we'll move on to the next slide then. Which is the SPY chart. On the left, we've got the weekly, and I've added the daily this week on the right. I'm sorry if the quality is not quite there. I just realised the quality is not overly good on my side, even though I just transferred it over, but whatever. You can see the last 3 weeks absolutely rocketed off of the bottom of this trend line. I say that, it's created the trend line that I've drawn. But there's a little bit of word of caution here. So we've had this start of the trend line in the when the year went from 2021 to 2022, the crossover. That's why I started this trend line. Of course, we have visited that in the last year or so, maybe the last 6 months. We're just coming to that again. So, and obviously with a little bit of firepower behind us, as you can see, it's a very, very strong move. I'm thinking maybe we just get more of a natural pullback down to maybe, where are the lines? I thought I put the lines on here, maybe I didn't. Either this obviously volume profile here, which is about 690, and then down below that 660. So there's definitely room for a pullback. Obviously nothing goes up forever, of course, given what's going on in the world, it could keep going up. But I would just have that word of caution that we probably will get a pullback for sure. What are your thoughts on the SPY at the moment, or just the markets in general, I guess?
I think anybody who says that they could have predicted this is going to happen is
Yeah,
just outright, delusional or delulu, whatever you want to call it. And I think most people they missed this, and not necessarily you missed everything, but you might have missed certain names that you wanted to get in, and then we just had this run. Um, Honestly, I think there are still a lot of gaps that has been created on SPY, and unlike stocks, I think indexes, especially SPY and QQ, they tend to fill those gaps. Um, More religiously than stocks. A
yeah,
stock may take 2 years to fill the gap, but I don't think SPY is going to take that long to fill those gaps. And you can see, I mean, there's a gap just below the last between Thursday and Friday candle, right? Between 703 and 705. I think that's a place right there. Like there's a big gap actually between what was that 672 and 658. That's a massive gap, right? So for whenever that pullback happens, I think that's the next area that you would want to buy or get in or build your position. And I think goes back to the whole investing mindset is there is no reason to believe that it's not going to go up in the long term. So every time you get these opportunities, you add. But what ends up happening is we actually get that, we freeze and we don't invest and then we regret. And because I'll tell you the reason is some of my nephews, and they are very young, like 20, 22, 23, they go quiet when the markets are red, and as soon as markets are running they keep asking, hey, what should I buy in this. And I'm
yeah,
like, why are you asking a question when why you are what do you want to buy when everything is in green, right? Stock is up 20% and then you want to buy that stock at 20%. Why didn't you buy it at the point is that it's very difficult to practice that, but you have to keep that in mind. This is a cycle. This will keep repeating until the day you are done with trading or investing. So
yeah. And you can see it just on the left side of the chart, on the weekly chart. So that goes all the way back to 2022. You can see how the market just over time it just does just go up. The last kind of 20, 30 years plus, of course, obviously you get these large dips, and as Kaye said, these are the times to buy, not at the top of the moves, so to speak. You can add little bits here and there if that's your style. Dollar cost averaging every month. If you're at all-time highs in a particular month, then that's okay. You can do that, but I wouldn't add in bulk at these highs because it's just a little bit, it just doesn't make sense. So what I like to do is I like to kind of hoard money a little bit. So every month I'll save money, put it in the bank or whatever, or particularly high interest, whatever. And then I'll add, on these dips. I didn't quite reach my target, which is a bit of a shame, but that's okay because, I made the most out of this dip down here. But yeah, just having the know-how to kind of add at the right times. Obviously, we don't know the right times at the moment, but there's certain signals that you go by that kind of abide by your trading plan, and that's kind of how you move on, or investing plan, I suppose I should probably say. But yeah, we'll move on then from the SPY weekly and daily charts. It's a very interesting take there. We do have a comment here on the right side by Jack James once again. Speaking of IGV, a little bit further back, it reacts negatively to Anthropic's news, but eventually we will see Anthropic's added to the IGV once it goes public. What are your thoughts on that, Kate? Do you reckon that could happen?
yeah, they will go public. That'll be very interesting. I don't know if IGV will be the ETF or will they just create a separate AI ETF that will house both OpenAI and Anthropic when they go public. It'll be interesting to see. But I agree, the general sentiment is correct because right, the reason SaaS is getting hit is like every time Anthropic comes up with the news, the SaaS stock gets hit.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, we'll move on then to the next slide. This is our past performance. Last week I picked Rivian, you picked Meta. It was very close. It was only
I
3% in
thought
it, not even
I
that.
thought I won this one, but I don't know how I lost.
I think Rivian had a pretty good couple of days, and that just kind of made it. But of course, these are the picks we say every week. These are picks that we look for the longer term, not so much just the 1 week. We just have a little bit of fun with it, and we have a little bit of competition throughout the year. You can see Kaye is currently winning the 6-5. It's very close this year, but considering we're almost in the 5th month, we've still got plenty of action to kind of go through. But you can see the names that we pick. That's the reason we put this on the screen here. The names that we kind of consistently pick week in, week out. So that's something you need to obviously subscribe to me, obviously at Shaun Trades _ and of course Invest K on X and YouTube. Kay's got a Substack there as well. Is there anything you've got, anything particular going at the moment, Kay?
No, nothing at this point of time. It's just waiting for the markets to kind of understand what's going on in the market. It's too difficult to place and bet and say this is how it's going to work out, right? There's a lot at play that's happening, especially with this the whole AI stuff. And until we get some more clarity, and I have told you, right? I mean, until the narrative changes, it's not like
Yeah.
the SaaS companies are dead. The narrative has to change.
Very interesting. Well, look forward to seeing what content you do provide when you provide it. For me, obviously, I've got kind of general trading videos coming out every month. I'm going to do a few more live trading videos as well, not so much live sessions, but live trading videos to kind of get a feel of the real emotions when you trade. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, obviously subscribe to me on the YouTube. But move on then to my pick of the week, which is ONDS, which is like a drone stock, more tailored towards kind of defense, which is the clear interest at the moment, of course, with everything that's going on defense wise. And there's a potential trade on the screen here for us. I'm not in this, and I am very interested in it. I'm not too sure execution wise why I want it, which is maybe we can get a bit of feedback from Kay here today while we look at this chart. But basically, we can see obviously the lines we've got on the screen. We've got the overall trend line on the bigger scale. This is obviously the daily chart. And we're looking as a target to get back to that $20 level. So get to that $20 level for ONDS. We can see another trend line coming down here, which we've just kind of broken in the last couple of days. And now I'm just thinking, I didn't want to take this, obviously I don't want to take it into the weekend. But normally I would probably take this because it's a bit of a retest on the previous trend line. Intraday on Friday and actually intraday on Thursday as well.
Okay.
But I'm now thinking perhaps maybe we push up to maybe that $11 level and then come back down and retest that kind of 10.50 for a bit of a retest on the volume.
Correct.
Instead. But obviously what happens when it opens up tomorrow is interesting.
And
also your thoughts.
Also, I think at the 993 you have a 50 SMA as a support line coming in, right? There's just a lot of volume there. So if it actually clears that volume level, you actually have nothing stopping you from actually going all the way to 20. Of course, that also depends on the general narrative of the market, but stocks like these, they don't take a month to get to that price point. They can double in a very, very short amount of time. But I think that area is pretty key, especially from the volume side, because there's a lot more trading happening at that level. And once it clears that, you could cover that entire thing in like 2-3 sessions.
Okay, let me ask you this question then. So if you're expecting a move to the upside, hopefully, of course, that's the thesis throughout this whole trade. Would you start a small position now and perhaps add to it if we get a push out and a pullback, and add the rest of that position to obviously go long towards our target?
Yeah.
Would you be patient?
No, so I would actually start a small position because technically you are a breakout trader, right? So that's your methodology. So in your methodology, it tests, and that's when you enter for it to break out. Now in this scenario, you do have these big volume shelves, so that is coming up as a resistance. But if it can maintain the 993, which gives the 50 moving day average support, the SMA support, I am a little bit more confident that we could, as long as the market doesn't turn back, we could continue to see the trend upwards. So I would definitely get in. And the reason is because what if in one day the stock goes up 25%? At least you wouldn't feel sad that he did not have anything, right?
Yeah.
Even if a small position, you will make some profit. And then of course, you can always put a stop loss. You should put a stop loss, to just in case things turn around. So for a small bet, I would definitely enter with a small position, and maybe let's say if I was maybe at a 50% or 25%, I would enter at these levels, because you're it's asymmetrical bet here, right? The chance of you making money on this is much higher than losing, or at least you will lose whatever your stop loss limit is going to be.
Yeah, so this is a 6-to-1 ratio trade.
Yeah.
Obviously, the stop loss would be just below this low, and obviously the trend line here on the left. So that's kind of already thought out as well. I like your take on the kind of adding a part now, adding a part later on. Just for viewers looking at this is not a timeline specific target. This is just me drawing it out to fit on the screen, so we can have the thesis. But we could hit this next month in June, or we could hit this in July, August. This is not a specific time for it to get to $20. So I'm thinking about obviously maybe taking a leap on this. I'm not too sure yet in terms of the volatility and that kind of stuff, or I just take shares. But if I do take it, you'll see it on my X, which of course you can see the details in the bottom left-hand corner there. So yeah, it's interesting the stock. I think a lot of people have also got eyes on it. So yeah, keeping a close eye on this one for sure. We'll move on to your stock then, which is Netflix. I'm
This is
interested to see
Netflix.
what you got to say actually. Yeah, because I
Well,
thought about this during the week.
so interestingly, Netflix again, being in the mega cap, um, a proven business model. And there are a couple of reasons folks gave on why they went down. I think the primary reason is, I think Reed Hastings is retiring. That is the primary reason. So you saw this massive correction or a massive reaction to that news. Of course, there are other narrative where, hey, they are getting distracted and they are launching this TikTok reel kind of segment. I don't think that's a distraction. I think that's an expansion to the existing
Yeah,
business model.
that's what I
Now, you
thought.
tell
Yeah.
me which other streaming services is even close. Like, I heard people talking about Disney, Hulu, HBO, all that crap we are hearing from 2021, 2022. We're sitting in 2026, boss. Netflix is still the king. Because the reason is, first, it expanded, and it brought content. And if you think about it, 10 years back, were you watching international content? Were you interested in watching international content? Not necessarily everybody was not interested in it. But with Netflix, they really broke that market, right? So they started bringing international content across the board to everybody. Everybody else was just following suit, right? Disney's biggest IP was Disney movies or Disney, their IP products, right? So the same stuff, mostly for kids, and then they acquired Hulu, and then Hulu became more. So pretty much they're getting into this whole same type of content, right? They are now producing content. Amazon Prime, right? They launched it. It's decently successful, I would say. Apple haven't been very successful, but at least they have some. So everybody has their fingers in there, but nobody is as dedicated or as focused as Netflix, because that is their main business driver, right? Everybody else, they have other business models. Like Amazon is not relying on Prime to make money, right? They have other things. Same thing with Apple, same thing with Disney and others. So I think Netflix over here is that was a reaction to the earnings. I don't think that was so. Simple trade here, and this is more of a swing trade. So I am actually going to hold this position for a long time. It could be a swing or a position trade depending on it. We could see that gap that you're seeing at 86 to 90, that could get filled, but there are support levels coming at, I think there's a 100 SMA. The red one is a 100 SMA, I think. Yeah, so the 100 and the 50 are coming under.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually building a position. I actually did take a position in around the 97. So that is where I will enter. At 97, I will enter because that's my CSP at 97. And then I think it drops to 96 because I did get $100 off on that. So 96 will be my cost basis to enter. But I also have other position in the previous position. So that will just that will increase my cost basis. My original cost basis, I think, is 76 or something. So it will go up a little bit, but this is going to be a pure trade. So I'm basically playing back to 105 to fill that gap when that happens. So that 97, I will get in and I'll play to the upside to exit at 105, short term trade. But I have I've already added more to my long term positions of Netflix.
So you've got two kind of
Yeah.
positions there, haven't you? Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because I like it but kind of a bit further down, maybe at that 92, 94 area, just because
Yeah,
you've
I mean,
got those two moving averages. This trend line isn't perfect, of course. You could
no,
draw
that's
it
not
a
perfect.
few different ways, but I do like it there, of course.
Honestly, you could even enter at 86. Like, I think there's a very good chance it will fill that gap.
Yeah, you reckon?
I
I,
think so. It might fill the gap because sometimes the narrative could drag a couple days, right? If the market, if the market has a little bit of a red day, you might continue to see some selling pressure going into Netflix. So you might end up, filling that gap.
yeah. No, it's definitely something to look out for. I mean, we spoke about it in my pick of the week at ONDS. If you wanted to start a position at 92 and it did drop down to kind of 86, that's where you could add to it. And just be mindful, of course, your stop loss initially would have to be quite low if that was the case. So
Yeah.
obviously size appropriately if you are going to do that to any stock, not just Netflix. If you're going to kind of average down, shall we say. Also, you've got this low that is created quite nicely. So if we do drop past that 90 level, do expect 86 pretty quickly, I would say,
Hmm.
just because of the the nature of the gap there on the
Yeah.
left side. And you can see obviously the volume you've got on the left side as well here, Kaye. We drop that, then that could kind of come down to 86. But I do think that there will be a lot of interest around that kind of 92, 94 level for sure. And I'm going to be looking at that in the days to come. But yeah, interesting pick. Obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
RSI down to 50 as well, so just above my head. RSI sitting nicely in the middle. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of days.
So I think what happens is when you sell options, you actually take advantage of high IV, especially for reactions like these, and you get a higher premium. So that was precisely the reason I entered at 97. Now,
Yeah,
what I can do, if the
fair
stock
enough.
stalls at 97, 95 level, I can roll the stock before taking the assignment, because my assignment is for next week. So I can continue rolling without actually entering the position to a point where I actually have collected, I don't know, $4, $5, $6 per stock, and I could just close that entire position without actually even entering the trade. So that is an advantage if you sell option, um, because the majority of that big drop reaction is already done. We have passed through that stage. I mean, the chance of it dropping another 3, 4, 5, 50% is going to be pretty low, because there's no structural problem with the business per se. It's just
Yeah,
the
just news
founder,
reaction.
the founder is retiring, and you a couple of that news elements did not play a big role to it.
I would say their guidance was a little bit short as well, but it wasn't that bad.
It's like
Can't remember the numbers now, but it wasn't
yeah,
that bad.
we have had worse guidance from Netflix before.
Yeah. Okay, that was our picks of the week. I had ONDS and Kay here had Netflix. Interested to see what happens this time next week. Okay, let's jump into the audience requests.
Hmm.
Let's put that on the screen. We've got a few already, but keep coming. We can fill out the next half an hour quite easily. But I'm pretty sure we've got enough to definitely cover that half an hour, even if we have to go
Yeah,
a bit slower.
we have the specific request, and then we can cover some of the max sevens, because that was just general request.
Let me get the charts ready. Here we go.
So first one is Coinbase. How is
Apologies.
Bitcoin doing? I haven't been tracking BTC lately. Still down 15% year to date, Bitcoin.
So I did a bit on Coinbase the other day. Actually, you can see it kind of on the screen. We've broken out of this longer term trend line ish
Mhm.
from last October. We came out of it. Took a while, but we came back down and retested it in a very dramatic fashion. I don't trade Coinbase. I don't have any interest in trading Coinbase at all, just because it's one of those names that just doesn't agree with me, which is it happens. But what I would be looking for is a breakout of this, essentially double top over here. We've reacted off it on Friday actually, but if we break out this level of 213, come back down and retest it and then make a move higher to that 274, which of course you can see is resistance here on the left, and I think actually more here, a bit of support there, resistance,
I think,
resistance. Yeah,
just to add to your analysis, 258 is the 200-day, sorry, 258 is the 300-day SMA, and 273 is the 200-day SMA. So that is going to be a
so this
major
whole area
resistance
pretty
level.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if you go for the 20% mark there, that's not too bad. That's 258. That's where Kaye's talking about the moving average there, coming in for Coinbase. Any other thoughts here for Coinbase?
No, I think that would be the play at that point. Like you want to run it all the way to the resistance, and probably exit and then leave the runner if you want. But that's a good 18%, 19% plus for 200-day SMA.
Yeah, and Coinbase that can do that in a matter of days because it's so volatile, which is why I don't like it.
And they
It's
report
just so
earnings.
erratic.
Yeah, and they report earnings on 5/7, so that is still a little bit. You got some time.
That's that line there, the vertical line. So yeah, that kind of comes in line with what we're talking about. So if you're going to be trading around earnings, do be careful because obviously earnings can go either way. Okay,
Yeah.
what's next?
Next is Grab. I know we were talking about Grab.
We were before the stream, weren't we? It's
Yeah.
interesting where it's come from. Obviously, we had a bit of a basing down here, but we didn't know that was a basing. It could still obviously break lower, of course, but in my analysis, 370 does feel a bit like a bottom. It kind of broke through my analysis from before. You can see, I think we've come up with this a few times. It's actually one of my picks of the year, coincidentally. That was at the turn of the year. When was that? So I picked it somewhere up here. So it's dropped quite considerably since then. Yes, my leap calls are not doing so well, but of course I've got a lot of time behind me. There's a lot of flexibility there. But the general analysis was it's kind of moving up in this channel, and the target is 7 to 750 within the next 16 months or so, something like that. But yeah, nothing else to really say apart from I'm excited about Grab. Are you excited about Grab, Kay?
Yeah, absolutely. I just not happy. I was thinking at 390. I was thinking of adding more to my position, like the share position, but missed it. Now it's back up 4.2. So
We could easily get a retest, come back down to retest
yeah,
around about $3.90, $4. So you can easily do that. Only 10, 20 cents away. And of course, the news over the weekend might just do that. Who knows? But that's Grab. Interesting
next
to
is
see.
GS.
Goldman Sachs. Okay, doing very well in the last few years, as you can see. Most banks are. I did a bit of analysis on this before the stream because obviously it came up nice and early, the request. And of course, we had a bit of a gap up just before earnings, actually, not quite the earnings gap. Gapped up, come back down, and we've filled that gap already. So, Kay, I know you like gaps, but we've filled that gap and we've moved higher. And the earnings was actually almost part of that gap fill the day after.
Yeah, they
But we're
beat the earnings.
looking like we're kind of powering higher. Do you think it can make all-time highs again?
I think there's a very, very possible outcome because they beat both top line and bottom line.
And that from where we are now is about 6%. I wouldn't buy it here. I would wait for maybe come back down and retest this little area of price action. You can see it's a bit of a zone here. So maybe we can come back down to the bottom of that, retest the bottom of that, and then have a really nice tight stop loss, and then make it move higher. But I won't be trading it personally. But that's my thoughts on Goldman Sachs. Anything else for Goldman
No, I
Sachs?
think you covered it pretty well on this one. Next is PLAB, PLAB. I've heard of this one. I don't remember. Photonics. Okay. Yes, I think we have covered this once before.
We have, but judging by the
Semiconductors.
diagram on the screen,
Yeah,
we thought
semiconductors.
it might actually go lower, but it didn't. It went higher.
Yeah,
Gold stocks.
nobody. I think because everything is going back up.
Did you say this was semiconductors? Right?
Yeah, semiconductors. Yes.
I think there's more appealing names, isn't there? But you could say if it does come back down to kind of 43.50, you can retest this kind of double top here. That would be ideal. Would you agree there, Kay?
Yes. Yes. I'm actually just looking. Yeah, like that gap is just like I wish
So you're
this
looking down here, aren't you?
decline could have been that gap fill would have been ideal, but seems like we'll have to wait because that's where the 200 to 300 day SMA is. So
That's actually more interesting than I guess. As maybe as an entry, just because this is a bit more of an erratic resistance here. If it did poke above it, like almost $2 above that actually. So you could actually say the gap fill might be a bit more appealing. Of course, we've got all the volume down here as well. So yeah, a hard one to analyze actually at this particular point. But we do have.
Because you don't really have much data, right?
It could be close to this pattern as well. So the channel kind of coming upwards, we could be close to that as resistance. So we could be seeing that pull back very shortly. So anywhere between 40 and 42, I think, is where I'm going to settle.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next is TSEM. I think this is also semiconductor. Yep. Tower semiconductor.
And let me write that down quickly. The other one.
I know they're reporting earnings.
Tower semiconductor. All the semiconductors are all flying at the moment.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to buy this. So we've got a potential RSI divergence. If we do get a pullback, potential RSI divergence with the RSI here on the screen at 80, which is not that high, and then obviously a little bit lower here at 75. So if we pull that back down, you can see prices going up, but momentum is coming down. Where can it come to though? That's the thing. Somehow we've drawn this. I don't know where this has come from.
That was a long time back. That's why. Because I remember this was requested some time back. I remember the name. Yeah, Money Manage brought this up. I remember him bringing this up back in the day.
I just don't know where it would come back to.
Yeah,
the moving averages.
The issue is at the weekly, right? It's been above. It's in overbought territory since mid-March. So it's been 1 month. It's been overbought territory. So and trust me, it can remain in that territory for a very long time, because the last time this happened was started in end of October of 2025 and stayed overbought all the way until February of 2026.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
We've seen it before in a lot of other stocks as well. So don't take,
Exactly.
I don't ever trade with RSI, getting into a position.
Yeah, and that's even on the weekly. Think about that.
Yeah, that's crazy actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so staying away from this one, monitoring the position. If it comes back down to 150-ish, that would be interesting for me personally.
Next is Lam Research, LRCX. And we're getting some request here, thoughts on AHR. So Teddy, we will cover that. We just go through first come, first serve. So as we are getting tickers, we are just putting it in our list and we'll go through them.
Yeah, look, it's kind of broken out of this. That must have been, that wasn't even earnings. That was just a standard gap up. So there's a gap there.
But they report earnings next week. And there is a EPS revision of 23. Let's see the earnings history. So if they're reporting earnings, considering they have beaten their earnings, top line, bottom line, all the time, I mean, it's going to be a binary play on earnings if you want to enter.
You've got a mini kind of bull flag here as well. Obviously, the pin coming up, bit of price action here. It's not enough for me to kind of get into that, especially with earnings literally in 3 days. But something to be excited about if you're already holding shares. If you bought somewhere down here, 150, 180, or even up here somewhere kind of 220, that would be my next move up of expectation. But trading that now would be not in my playbook at all. If anything, I'd be waiting for that kind of.
I mean, this would be a pure earnings play, right? 100%. You would purely play earnings play, and then I don't have the data yet, but you could play if you're interested in earnings. Let's see what the implied move is generally for this one.
But the volume can't be that high on this stock, right?
That's also a challenge, right? This is LRCX, right?
LRCX, yeah.
So the implied move is around 5.9, actual move is around 5.6. Um, so you could play the I guess the direction would be, I mean, I mean, there are opportunities if you want to play the bullish side, or you can play the condor. But condor, I don't know. It depends on the credit that you will get. Is it worth that or
Yeah,
not? So right, and also depends on the volume, because volume is the key. If you don't have enough volume on these kind of stocks, then you won't get the a good execution price.
I don't think there'll be that much volume on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the 24th April, right? So you have 1,000 open contracts, open interest, 1,800, 157.11. That's not the type of sizing you want for somebody that's reporting earnings, because if you compare that to Tesla, it's like
Oh,
thousands
yeah.
and thousands of shares. Like, open contracts are like 2,500, 5,000.
There's a big
Crazy.
difference there, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. But again, because the markets are closed, I don't have a real time data right now. I
Yeah.
mean, this is the old data from Friday updated, so things may be different. But if you're going to play earnings, you have to have a different mindset. It's not like your typical, this is a binary event, right? So either it will go in a direction, it will not go in a direction. Buying just a call is not going to help.
No. Okay, I think we spent enough time on LRCX.
Okay,
Let's move on.
next is GLXY.
Galaxy Digital. I think there was news on this recently, wasn't there? Did it get
Let me
acquired by
see.
someone?
Let me see.
Or was that someone else? That might be someone else. That might be GSAT. GSAT.
Do, 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 do.
Right.
Oh, so they are going to, in March, there was a news. They said Galaxy to voluntarily delist from the TSX to maintain NASDAQ listing. And then I think Thursday, March 5th, they have a news. Crypto bill hits new impasse as banks reject White House compromise. What are they saying? Year to date still is up 25%, not bad. Considering crypto hasn't been doing that well.
If we do break this trend line, I'd be looking for this supply zone as a target with a nice tight stop loss below whatever candle it produces when it breaks out, which would be a nice 3-to-1 ratio. Let's zoom in a bit so people can actually see that. It's a risk, but
You know why this is brought up is because on Friday they saw an unusual intraday surge with 18.88 million shares traded, which is up 200% compared to the prior session. That's
wow,
why. Yeah,
volume coming in.
yeah. So they are saying insiders and institutions have been increasing exposure. Director bought 25,000 shares at 2080. Large holders like Vanguard materially boosted their stake. So seems like a lot of buying that is happening with Galaxy.
And we have earnings on 2 weeks' time, 28th of April.
Okay.
That vertical line there.
So next week. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
like it. Actually, I've written it down. So thank you for whoever brought that one up. Who brought that one up? Let's have a look. Dan. Thank you, Dan. We'll move on to the next one.
Next is a big one, Snow.
Snowflake.
I know you
This
were
one,
interested in Snowflake, right?
yes, I was, but I was interested here, and actually had a position on the screen. Snow has just completely. I've got to say it fucked me sideways in the last couple of months. To be quite honest with you, but yeah, my buy zone was down here. I even had it set at 112 or something like that. I think it was the limit buy, and it just didn't. And it, obviously, since then, it's kind of moved up really nicely. And congratulations to any holders, or sorry, should I say buyers? Holders are probably still in the shit here, but we've got the buyers. If they did get it down here, then fantastic, well done. Yeah, I'll let you talk about Snow because I'll only go on in a very negative tangent with Snow.
No, I think again, going back to the whole, narrative for the SaaS, right?
SaaS,
This is unfortunately just an impact of AI on the SaaS names, and I think this earnings for ServiceNow that they are going to report earnings next week is going to give us a good idea on whether that narrative is shifting or not. And I think this might be the start of the change from the SaaS perspective, because lately we have seen a lot of positive news coming out from SaaS companies like Salesforce, ServiceNow, on how they are actually improving or how they are actually taking AI to the next level using the tools. Also, there has been a little bit of a slight change, not a lot, but if you hear CNBC folks or Bloomberg folks, they are starting to believe that the SaaS tools will not go away, because 2 months back they were like, oh, you'll vibe code everything. So the problem with vibe coding is that you will vibe code something, I will vibe code the same thing, and we will have two instances of vibe coded stuff. And then if you have 5,000 employees, 5,000 people will vibe code. You know what I'm getting at, right? It's just not sustainable for enterprise. And why would you vibe code something that already exists, right? You want to build new stuff, improve existing stuff. So it's anyway. So without going into that spiel, I think there may be a turnaround coming for SaaS. It could be this quarter, it could be next quarter, but I think the narrative's changing. Anthropic is invested in ServiceNow as well. So not to do with anything with Snow, there is still a lot of resistance coming in. I would be careful at where I add, but if you believe in Snow, if you have done your due diligence depending on the investing horizon time frame, I would slowly start to nibble and add to my position, because there is like a 200-day, 300-day SMA coming up. Those will be major resistance level. I don't
This
know
is
when
what
the
I was going to say. It's not out of the woods yet, by all
yeah,
means,
it's
because we've
gonna
got
take a while.
resistance here. Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna take a while for the recovery to happen, but it has done it before. Like you can see those run ups.
yeah. I would just say the previous trend line that we've set quite well has been broken down, of course, but we've come back up and test that as resistance. What happens here, that kind of 145, 150 level will be very interesting. If it does come back down to 112 and I do get my entry, I'd be very happy with that. And obviously, I'll be playing it back up to 210 ish, or just 200, maybe the psychological level, which would be obviously about an 80% return, 85%, something like that return, which would be nice. Of course, that would be over the long term, probably buy leap calls with that, to be honest with you, leap options. Yeah, I think we've covered Snow quite well there.
Okay, next is ServiceNow.
Service now.
So they report earnings this week. Going to be very, very interesting. There is a 28 up revision, so most likely they're going to beat their earnings. I'm not interested in the earnings per se. I'm interested more in their take on the future guidance
Yeah.
and what they talk about AI. And I think if you are interested in the SaaS space, I think hearing that is more important than whether they beat their top line, bottom line or not. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think I'll be waiting to see what they say on the earnings report to play any sort of trade on this one. When did you say that was? Tuesday?
I think it's Wednesday, if I'm not wrong. Let me see.
Wednesday. Okay.
422. What is 422?
Be one to look out for then. Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's hard to draw any lines on this as well when it's like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave this for earnings dependence for sure. Okay, what's next?
Next is United Health Group, UNH.
Are you still in this one, Kaye?
No, I exited long time back.
I thought you did, yeah.
Long time back. I made my money. I'm happy, and then I just left because again, it's very interesting. If you notice, the stock has been creating a lot of gaps.
Yeah,
So,
loads. But one
exactly.
above here, that'll be something to look forward to in the next couple of weeks perhaps. We do have earnings actually on Tuesday. So earnings just around the corner. Okay, so Kaye, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Sorry, I have to respond to a couple of texts, but yeah, no problem.
Yeah, if you've got to run at any points, let me know.
Yeah. Once I'll let you know if I have to quickly hop off. But yeah,
what I do like is the recent kind of trend line break. I mean, there's not enough contact points really for real excitement, but we are actually breaking out this level. Of course, this is good volume as well, so perhaps we are getting a bit of a heightened move on this. This
Okay.
will be a bit of a challenge here. This
Oh,
resistance
you went to
level.
the weekly, right? Okay, got it.
I've gone to the weekly, yeah.
Okay.
That kind of 350 to 360 would be very challenging to get through, but there's no reason why you can't play it from here to there, potentially.
I mean, honestly, unlike the tech sector, right? You know, if you're hoping for the stock to be back to the all-time highs of 580, I mean,
It's gonna be
it's
years.
gonna take a while.
Yeah, it's gonna be years
It's
before
gonna
it
create
happens.
multiple gaps, so it's not like you have lost it. You actually have multiple opportunities to profit from short-term trades on these, but you have to be patient on stocks like these.
Okay, what's next? Snap.
Snap, your favorite.
It's done quite well actually. My leap calls are up now 50%, so I'm happy with that. I'm probably going to leave it on the table for a little bit just to come up to this. I haven't drawn it on here, but this resistance here about 7.10. Let's call it $7 just for argument's sake. So we've got another dollar of price action to get there. Then I'll probably sell it if it gets there pretty quickly, because obviously that makes a lot of sense given the time of that move. But long term, I don't mind it. I still need to see more with the company, and we spoke about that at the turn of the year. It was one of my picks of the year. I want to see the progression and the innovation with the company. Didn't really have that in the first earnings report of the year, so maybe with this one coming up, I don't know when that will be. I think that's pretty. It's the 6th of May, so we've got a little while until that happens, probably about 3 or 4 weeks. So yeah, I'm going to be waiting for that.
I
Before I get
when you
excited.
brought this up during the early part of the year, and I was like, I'm gonna buy the leap, and I didn't
Yeah,
buy the leap, and now I'm regretting it. I could have just bought the leap.
at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, when you brought it up.
Yeah, so that was still here though. This sort of price action, so it's still down in the year. So there's still an opportunity. I mean, I wouldn't be buying it now, of course, because of the
No,
price
not
action.
anymore. I mean,
But if it
if
comes back
if
down
it
to 5, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah,
if it pulls back, I will. But that's the problem. Like, there are just so many tickers that you cannot just buy everything.
yeah, you can't. No, you have to be very selective, and sometimes the names that you know and trust and love are the best ones to go for. Snap is not one of those for us, it seems. Okay, I think we covered that quite well. Looking
Yeah.
forward to the next earnings report, and it's pushing up nicely.
Next
Maybe it
is,
bottoms out.
I think we can just cover two more. AHER, and this is. Did I get it?
Whoa! What happened here? This is one of those stocks where you do the research, well, not the research, you do the price action research. It comes back down and retests the previous trend line. It just absolutely rips.
I wonder if it was a shorts covering this, because this kind of a move generally happens when shorts are covering.
That's 180%. How have I not even heard that? This is one of those stocks that's quite widely covered within the retail industry.
Is
But,
it? I didn't even know that.
not retail industry, but retail investors.
Yeah.
Yeah, 180. That's mad. Oh
Crazy.
well, another one missed. I'm not doing the analysis on this. Come back down to fill the gaps. You've got a gap here, and you've got a gap here.
I mean, year to date, 315% this stock has done. Crazy. I mean, there's really nothing to say here at this point in time.
I mean, there's earnings that did well as well on top of all of that.
Yeah.
So there's an
I
earnings
mean,
report right there.
you don't want to. I mean, you don't want to buy at this level, right? If it has already made this much of a move, can it go more? Yes, but the risk to reward is not there.
It's just not. No.
I mean, in this market, in 4 months, 4.5 months, it has made 350%. Can it make 700? Anything is possible. But what are the chances of it actually making 700 versus actually retracing back to 150%, right? Next one is SKYT. Wonder if that's also doing the same thing.
We will end with SKYT.
Yes.
I didn't realise it was almost 7 o'clock already. Obviously, it's not 7 o'clock where you are, but
This is amazing. It's this year to date it's 81%, but in 1 year this has made 400%. So another crazy stock.
However, Kaye, this is gorgeous setup. So you've got resistance back in late 2021, 1, 2, 3 times. We've recently gone here, so this is kind of almost like a cup and handle pattern. If you're familiar with that, obviously this is the
Yeah, yeah.
handle coming up to the
Mhm.
34 level. If we can get a break out of 34, maybe come up to 38, something like that, and then come back down and retest 34, that is a major, major buying point for me. Because I really like the cup and handle, and the longer the better, because obviously you get more stability, in theory, of course. But coming back here, and of course, unknown price action from then, but I'd probably aim for at least $50, given, the psychological impact of that. You could probably go 40 first, but I think I would aim for 50, given the way the stock moves. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this one. I won't be trading it anytime soon because I've still got to wait for the move to play out. But yeah, any thoughts on this one before we finish off the stream?
No, I think you got this right. I think
Exciting
that's
stuff. And thank you very much, Teddy E, for bringing that one up. We appreciate that with AHAR and Skite. I'm going to say Skite. That makes sense.
Skype.
But yeah, another great session that went really quickly. I was really surprised at how quickly that went. Obviously, time flies when you're having fun, of course. Obviously, it's going to be a very tumultuous week. It's going to be very heightened with all the headlines, of course, up, downs, lots of earnings. We've got Tesla, we've got Amex, and lots of other earnings as well. You just be careful when you're trading out there. Be mindful of your risk management. Be mindful of your sizing, of course. It's very easy to say that, but putting it in practice is another thing. So make sure you practice your discipline and your patience throughout the markets. Massive thank you to Wolf for actually the platform. We really, really appreciate it. It's been a really fun session once again. Kaye, would you like to round off the stream for us and we go into
Yeah, no, I think this is a great opportunity, but at the same time, I think if you have missed the move, then just wait for the opportunity to, present to you. I think a lot of folks, they make this mistake. They jump on it thinking, hey, now I'm gonna double it from here, and that's where you make the mistake. And then be careful in earnings play, right? It's always a binary event. So if you're gonna do earnings play, try to cover as many bases as possible. Do your due diligence in terms of the, if you're doing options trading, look at the implied moves, look at the success rate you have had in previous earnings and things like that. But yeah, pretty much, best of luck for your trading for next week. I'll see you guys
Yeah,
next
well
week, I
said.
guess.
Yeah, we'll be back here at 1 p.m. Eastern Time next week on YouTube, as you can see on the screen there, at Trading Weekly, and obviously on relative X channels, on the Wolf one, on mine, etc. So yeah, thank you very much for joining, everyone, and have a great week and trade safe. See you later, Kay.